Welcome back to the A&P podcast. We are your hosts, Avery and Peyton. I'm gonna let Avery start us off and introduce herself.
Hey y'all, I'm Avery. So excited to be on the podcast today. I'm currently a sophomore at UNC Chapel Hill. Go Tar Heels. And I am a HDFS major. And that's about all I can say about me at this moment.
Cool. I am Peyton, your other host, and I am also a sophomore at UNC, but I am an exercise science major concentrating in the sports administration with a minor in entrepreneurship.
Okay, full rounded.
Somewhat. Anyway, today we're gonna have a cool little conversation about family theories.
Oh yeah.
If you don't know, we love to talk about Hollywood and we love to talk about what happens in Hollywood. So we're gonna apply family theories to families in Hollywood. So, Avery, why don't you go into what theories we're going to talk about today?
Okay, today we are going to talk about the family systems theory and Erik Erikson's 8-step lifespan theory.
Cool.
Two very different theories, but we'll get into them.
So, can you give us a little definition of this theory?
Yes, of course. I shall try my best. So the family systems theory is a theory that views families as a whole entity made up of interconnected parts that seek to maintain balance. It kind of sits on the fact that everyone within the family maintains interdependent relationships with each other on a day-to-day basis, and each of these parts affect one another differently. And a family system is always ever-changing. And we see subsystems within the family system between each individual, which is really interesting.
Cool.
Okay. And our other theory, let's go to this real fast. Okay, so Erik Eriksson, like I stated earlier, he has this one specific lifespan theory, which says that there's stages in your life of development. But if we're focusing on specific parts of development throughout one's life, we're saying that development is lifelong. Development is multidimensional, meaning that it involves the dynamic interaction of factors like the physical, emotional, and psychological development. Development is multidirectional, which means that there are gains and losses throughout one's life. Development is plastic, which means that the characteristics are malleable and changeable. Development is influenced by contextual and sociocultural influences. And finally, development is multidisciplinary.
Look at you, so smart. Anyway, today we're specifically going to be talking about the Full House family, which is, Danny Tanner, DJ Tanner, Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, who actually play one person. What about that? That's pretty cool. And also, you don't have to know who this family is. The Kardashians.
The Kardashians,
So absolutely. If you don't know who they are, probably some of the most wealthy people on the planet currently, all family members with their own brands, and they at one point, I'm pretty sure they still have a show.
Yeah.
It's just not aired like it used to be. That's actually how they got their fame. They started doing a family reality TV show and it blew up. And next thing you know, you see Kylie Jenner with makeup products.
Oh, yeah.
And Kim coming out with her own Skims clothing line.
We're really keeping up with the Kardashians.
Oh, yeah.
In our society today.
So why don't we go ahead and delve into it, and let's start with talking about the Full House family.
Absolutely. Okay.
So for those who are not 100% aware about the Full House show either, it was an American television show or sitcom that basically talked about a widowed father, Danny Tanner. His wife was a firefighter, I believe, and was killed in a tragic accident. And essentially, he enlists his brother-in-law as well as his college roommate to move into the house with him to help him raise his 3 daughters. Also, at the time, the youngest daughter was a newborn.
Yes.
So, applying that to the family systems theory, we can kind of see how it's a family made up of very different but also very helpful interconnected parts. Obviously, you have Danny Tanner, who's their
Right.
biological father, who the girls are very familiar with. It's the dad that they've had around since they were born, since they even recognized who he was. And then you have Uncle Jesse, who they also are somewhat aware of because they know that's their uncle, but in the sense that he has never lived with them in that space and also kind of became another father to them because he took on that role of helping take the girls to school, helping pack their lunch, helping change the diapers, which I'm sure if you've seen any episodes was a bit of a struggle at
Oh
first.
yeah.
Um, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was a big Full House child, growing up. Um, there were a lot of different family dynamics in the show for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and I think probably my favorite part of the show, my favorite dynamic was definitely Michelle and both um Uncle Jesse and
Yeah.
forgetting his name.
Uncle Joey.
Uncle Joey.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I was going for. I think it was interesting to see her grow into the family the most because she was so young when
Yeah.
both those men moved in, that she was the most accepting. As we know, like the younger you are
Yeah.
in a new family system, the easier it is to be accepting of these new people in your life.
Yeah.
And she really looked up to all three of them as father figures. And I thought that was a very beautiful dynamic.
Yeah. I definitely think too is interesting. At the very beginning of the show, um, Uncle Jesse has a they at least they focus more in the show on Uncle Jesse's relationship with Michelle.
Right.
Um, because there's a time in one of the earlier seasons where Uncle Jesse is so overwhelmed by having to raise three girls, he decides to leave for a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously he doesn't stay away for too long, but in that period of time, he's going back to his former life before he became a part of this new family and before he took
Yeah.
on this parental role. And the whole time, he was honestly really worried about Michelle and worried about, is she feeling okay? Is she hurt? Is she doing okay without me? Because he was such a intricate and developmental part of Michelle's
Child.
newborn and
Yeah.
childhood. So I think it was interesting that they focused on that because I feel like it really shows this theory specifically and how there's all of these interconnected parts that make up this entire family.
Right.
Because while at the beginning of the show he was very close to Michelle, they actually did a remake of um Full House
Fuller
and
House.
called it Fuller House that aired on Netflix. And it even seems then that not DJ, not Michelle, Stephanie.
Yes, yes.
Stephanie has a very close relationship with Uncle Jesse towards the end of the original Full House show.
Yes.
And not that DJ didn't have those kinds of relationships. I think she just, because of her age, like you were saying, she was older when the uncles moved in and her mom passed away. And I think she's always been closer to her father because of that, because she didn't have that psychological development like the other girls did growing up, because she was already at a certain development stage when they moved in.
Right.
And so I think at the bottom line here is she always felt closer to her dad because he was always the father figure for her. And that, not that the uncles weren't, but it was easier for the other two to see the uncles as father figures, I feel like, before DJ did, because to DJ, her dad, Danny, was always the single, center father figure,
Right. I completely agree.
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and transition into talking about the one and only Kardashian family?
Absolutely. Yeah, the Kardashians. Moving a little bit more into modern times, but also the Kardashians have ranged for many years in the
Yeah.
Hollywood sightings.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of a revolving door of relationships for the women, but
Because growing up, you see mom and dad, a man and a woman, and then going from that to divorce and having to see that consistency no longer consistent, and especially seeing that your dad doesn't want to be a man anymore. I feel like that's a lot for not just a child to process, but for anybody to process.
right. it lost some of the stability they might have had in their family, even though it was
Yeah.
after the divorce. And it's a lot of changing family dynamics.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that you can see a lot of development through the Kardashian family throughout the years on their
Yeah.
show. I think an important one to note from the theory, the lifespan theory, is development being influenced by contextual and sociocultural influences. I feel like that's prevalent in the Kardashian family.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of cultural stuff going on in our society that has led to everything in their family, honestly, like
Yeah.
all of their clothing lines, all of their makeup lines, whatever they
Yes.
have, like
Yeah.
changing what they look like
Yeah.
has come from an influence of society. And I'm not necessarily like saying this is good or bad, but it definitely
Sure.
affects the other people in their life and how their family dynamic.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
So, any last thoughts or comments?
This has been a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, it has.
We've talked about two completely different families, two
Oh,
completely
yes.
different family dynamics.
100%.
We covered two different family theories.
Right.
And I feel like we've said what's needed to be said.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Last little tidbit that I'll end us with is, in my opinion, I think families aren't defined by who raises the children and how the children grow. I think a family is defined by the people who are willing to love each other and see the best for each other, no matter if they're a Kardashian or if they're a Tanner.
Absolutely.
So.
Love is what defines a family, not necessarily blood.
Yes. So thanks for joining the AMP podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.